The moment I unzipped her purse, my entire world collapsed. Nestled inside, hidden under her lipstick and perfume, was a silver packet no faithful wife should be carrying. I stared at it, my heart pounding so hard it felt like the walls could hear. That night, as she slept beside me, I did something no husband should ever do, but every betrayed man has dreamed of. I swapped what I found with something far more dangerous, and then I waited. I didn't know when she'd use it. I didn't know with who. But I knew the day would come, and when it did, everything would change. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and drop a comment where you are watching from. My name is Collins, and this is the story of how I caught my wife cheating, and how one single decision turned betrayal into a nightmare none of us saw coming. They say you never forget the exact moment your world starts to crack. For me, it wasn't dramatic. No screaming. No slammed doors. Just a quiet morning, the kind that should have been ordinary. Clara was rushing around the bedroom, hair still damp from the shower, digging through her purse for some lipstick before work. She dropped her keys, and when I bent down to hand them back, I saw it. A shiny silver packet wedged between her wallet and a bottle of perfume. I froze. For half a second, I told myself it couldn't be what I thought it was. Maybe it was old, maybe it wasn't even hers. But then I noticed the others, neatly tucked in the side pocket like they belonged there. Condoms. The word hit me like a brick to the chest. Married women don't carry condoms unless they're planning to use them. And it wasn't with me. I remember standing there, gripping those keys so tight the metal dug into my palm. My ears were ringing, my throat dry. She didn't notice. She just smiled at me, kissed my cheek, and said, "Don't wait up tonight, I've got extra paperwork." That's when the first lie burned itself into my memory. I wanted to confront her right then, but something held me back. If I asked, she'd deny. If I accused, she'd cry. And if I pushed too hard, she'd twist it back on me. No, I needed proof. I needed to see. That night, after she drifted into sleep beside me, I crept back to her purse. My heart raced as I pulled out the silver packets and lined them up on the table. Each one was a reminder of how foolish I'd been. That's when the idea came. A week earlier, Clara had asked me to buy her a pepper spray canister for safety. It was still sealed in the garage. I stared at it for a long time. My thoughts were dark, reckless, angry. What if the next time she reached for one of these packets, it didn't give her what she expected? What if her little secret burned right back at her? I opened the pepper spray. My hands shook as I worked, but adrenaline steadied me. I slit each packet open, swapped the contents, and resealed them carefully. It wasn't elegant, but it was convincing enough. By the time I finished, the table looked exactly as before, except now, the trap was set. I slipped the packets back into her purse, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Good night, darling." But sleep never came to me that night. Instead, I lay there, listening to her breathing, wondering what kind of woman she really was. The Clara I married, the woman who once cried in my arms when her mother died, the woman who promised me forever, she was gone. Replaced by someone who could smile at me in the morning while carrying another man's protection in her bag. And yet, I didn't hate her. Not fully. Not yet. I hated myself more, for missing the signs, for being blind, for still wanting to believe she'd never actually use them. But deep down, I knew she would. And when that day came, I would be ready. That was the night Collins the husband died, and Collins the storyteller, the man you're listening to now, was born. I tell people I didn't mean to go inside. That's the lie that sounds cleanest, the one that keeps the worst parts of me from looking too deliberate. The truth is simpler and uglier. I wanted to see. I wanted to stand in the doorway and watch the life I'd paid for unravel with my own two eyes. The hotel's lobby smelled of lemon polish and cheap cologne. It was the sort of place that thought its fluorescent lights made it classy. I moved through it like a ghost, memory playing on repeat, Clara's laugh in our kitchen, the way she always tucked her hair behind her ear when she listened to me. It felt obscene to watch that same laugh tilt toward someone else. The elevator ride up took forever. On the third floor the carpet muffled my footsteps, on the second, my pulse thudded so loud I thought the whole hallway would hear it. Room 212's door was cracked open, a slice of warm light cutting into the dark. I could hear them before I saw them, soft voices, then a low chuckle I recognized instantly. I stepped inside. It smelled of wine and her perfume. Clara was on the arm of a man I'd never met properly, broad shoulders, easy grin, a voice too comfortable with hers. He wore a jacket that fit like he rented it for the night. They were close enough that the fabric of their clothing seemed to blur. For a second nothing moved, then the man reached for her, and the world compressed into a single bright, painful line. Clara. The name slipped out like an accusation I couldn't swallow. She turned. Her smile was small, sudden, like a window that snapped shut. The man froze. "We know each other?" He said it with a stupid attempt at casualness that died on his tongue. I didn't give him a chance to breathe. My feet carried me forward before my brain had a say. "Don't pretend you don't know me." I let my voice do the work I couldn't. My hands were steady in a way my heart was not. He stood, his face shifting from surprise to anger. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded. "Her husband." The man laughed once, sharp, uneasy. "You're kidding. This a joke?" I don't remember exactly what I said after that. Words. Accusations. Names. I remember the sound of Clara's laugh curdling into fear, her hand sliding away from his arm as if she'd been burned. I remember him trying to touch me, to push me back, and the way his palm met my chest like a challenge. The room tilted. Chairs scraped, a glass shattered against the wall. A scream, not mine, not his, but hers, ripped out of her and lodged between my ribs. It made the air electric, and for a second everything went very slow. People in the corridor stopped. Someone muttered, footsteps fell. The hotel sounded like it was holding its breath. He moved fast then, the kind of fast that is all instinct and desperation. He grabbed at Clara, maybe to pull her away or to steady himself, and she stumbled back, foot catching on a chair. The vase on the table tipped and spilled water across the carpet. The man swore, the swear became worse, and then his hand was in my face. Security came in a rush, two men in identical uniforms, voices clipped, hands authoritative. They pushed and shoved and asked questions. Someone called the front desk. Another guest banged on the opposite room's door and stuck his head out, eyes wide. I felt stupidly theatrical and terribly exposed. In the light of the room, the truth looked raw. Clara's cheeks were wet, her eyes were blown wide and hopeless. The man's chest heaved, he was breathing hard as if he'd run a mile. I looked at them both and realized how small the three of us seemed under the hotel's ceiling. "Sir, you need to leave," one security guard said to the man. "This is a private matter." "Get him out," I told the guard, pointing at the man. My voice was flat. "He's not welcome." "He's not our guest," the guard answered. "I'll call the police if you want to press charges." "Press charges?" The man laughed, but it was a fake laugh, like a mask cracking. "You actually think this helps you? You think you can ruin my night? You think she wants you here?" The way he said, "she," like it was a possession made something inside me clench. But the crowd was growing, other guests now, their faces curious, their phones up like pitiless jurors. The power of mouths and eyes and judgment pressed against me. I could feel the scales tipping, not in my favor. Clara found her voice then, small and reedy. "Collins, please," she said. The way she said my name, like it was a plea, felt like a blade. "Collins, not here. Not here." I echoed. "When? Where then?" She flinched as if struck. Please don't make this worse." I wanted to tell her that the worst had already happened. Instead, I kept my hands out of sight. I watched him, watched her, and waited for them both to break. Moments like that are weirdly like watching a car crash in slow motion. You see things you cannot change and you can't look away. A hotel cleaner, an elderly woman with tired eyes, stepped closer and snatched the fallen purse from the floor. It was Clara's, beige leather with a scuff near the stitching. As she lifted it, a silver wrapper fluttered free and skittered across the carpet like a dead leaf. Time narrowed again. I felt my breath go cold, a prickle behind my neck. My brain rewound to the week I'd opened that purse in my kitchen, the careful work in the garage, the quiet ceiling. I'd told myself it would be quick, a shock, a wake-up. I'd imagined a simple, beautiful retribution that would leave me clean and righteous. I hadn't pictured the crowd, the sirens, the way our private betrayal would be theater. The wrapper came to rest by the hotel carpet, a tiny, meaningless thing to anyone else. To me it was everything. I didn't move at first. I let it sit there like proof and threat both. Then, because I am a man who keeps terrible promises to himself, I bent and picked it up. The wrapper felt smooth under my thumb. My stomach dropped at how ordinary it seemed, like an invitation, like a dare. Clara's eyes were on me. For a breathless second she looked like the woman I'd married, the one whose shoulder I'd held through funerals, the one I'd promised to protect. Then she looked away, and shame or fear or something harder clouded her face. "Why did you do this?" the man snarled, jerking toward me like he wanted to strike. "What are you doing here, stalking my private life?" "Get out," I said to him, not because I feared him but because the situation demanded it. "Get out of her life." He spat on the floor. "She's not yours anymore," he said. "She's not." The words didn't land. The front door banged, and footsteps thudded up the corridor. Sirens wailed faintly beyond the hotel walls, a distant promise of authority. The security guard moved to block the door, then pivoted, and in that instant the man made a run for it. He bolted, shoulder slamming past the guard, knocking into guests, muttering curses as he disappeared down the stairs. I stood there like a man who had watched a play and only now understood the final act. Clara sank into a chair, hands to her face, and sobs shook her. The cleaning woman looked at me with pity and disgust in equal measure. Someone called out for the police again, and someone else asked if anyone had seen the man's face. Phones lit up, people described, recorded, whispered. I had 1,000 things racing through me. I wanted to grab Clara and shake sense into her. I wanted to follow that man to the end of the earth and make him pay. I wanted to disappear and scream and laugh until my chest split. Mostly, I wanted answers. Instead, I did the thing that felt most like survival. I picked up Clara's purse from the floor and tucked it under my arm. Her head snapped up at that, eyes wide and accusing. "Give it back," she said, voice raw. "You have no right. You left it here," I said. I should have handed it to the cleaner, handed it to the guard, left it where it was. But I stood there with the leather pressed against my side, and the knowledge that it contained everything I needed to keep my control made my fingers curl around the strap. "They'll ask questions," the guard said. "You should stay for the police." I looked at Clara. She seemed smaller than before, like the night had carved away some thickness. Her breath came in short, ragged pulls. "I'll stay," I said. "Yes. I'll stay." But as I settled into the hard chair, the purse under my arm, I felt a shift in me. Something that had been coiled a long time began to unknot. I thought of the wrapper in my hand, how it had felt, how ordinary and loaded it was. I thought of the weeks of careful observation and then the kitchen at midnight, the swap in the garage and the way the packets had looked identical afterward. Outside the glass doors, blue lights washed the pavement. Voices grew louder, authority approaching. The hotel manager hovered at the edge of the room like a man tasked with fixing damage he didn't know how to mend. Clara's phone buzzed on the table, and when she glanced down I saw her fingers tremble as she read a message and then hurriedly typed a reply. There are moments when everything you are collapses into the next decision you make. For me, that moment arrived with sirens and glare and the taste of iron at the back of my throat. I could have walked away then. I could have surrendered the purse, the proof, the anger. I could have given the crowd and the guards and the police their story and let the legal system, or shame, or time do the rest. Instead I tightened my hold on the strap and dug my nails in until they hurt. "Tell them the truth," I said to no one in particular, voice steady enough to shock me. "Tell them everything." Clara flinched. She lifted her head and for the first time since that first morning with the shiny packets, she looked at me with a raw, unfiltered expression, fear, yes, but layered under that something like regret, maybe even guilt. "Collins," she started. The sirens were close now. The door opened, and two officers in dark uniforms stepped in, badges shining, practiced and cold. They asked us our names, they took statements, their pens like small daggers. The hotel hummed with whispered versions of our night, already we were becoming characters in a story not of our choosing. I gave my name. I told them who I was. I said I was the husband. They listened, polite and professional, and then they asked Clara if she wanted to press charges. She said no. Her voice was small and quick as a lie. When the officers left to find the man who had run, I stayed where I was, clutching the purse, listening to the echo of my heartbeat. Clara had stopped crying. She sat very still, a picture of composed pain. The hotel's fluorescent light seemed too bright and unforgiving. I put the purse on my lap and unzipped it a fraction. Nothing dramatic met my gaze, lipstick, a compact, a folded receipt. I reached with one finger into the inner pocket and felt the familiar smoothness of the silver wrapper I had placed there weeks ago. My throat closed around a sound I didn't recognize. I had wanted proof. I had wanted the truth. I had wanted to make her face exactly what I had known in secret. I had not wanted to feel like this, exposed, small, wanting, and more than anything, unbearably uncertain about everything that would come next. Outside, the hotel door swung and the night breathed. Inside, under those lights, the three of us sat with our secrets and the rawness of a life peeled back. Whatever would happen next had not yet been written, but the wrapper in my hand felt like the first sentence. The chaos inside the hotel room felt like a nightmare unfolding in slow motion. Clara's lover was still on the floor, eyes red, gasping for air after the pepper spray. Clara herself was screaming, clawing at her face, shouting my name like I was the villain in this play. Security guards rushed in, then the police. Questions were flying everywhere. Guests peeked from the hallway, whispering. And there I was, holding up the tiny silver wrapper between two fingers, my voice steady despite the storm in my chest. "This," I said, showing it to everyone in the room, "is what I found in my wife's purse. This is the kind of woman she is." Clara froze. Her lips trembled. The lover turned his face away in shame. The officers exchanged looks, some disgust, some pity. In that moment, the weight of betrayal wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to everyone watching. Clara's mask had cracked wide open, and the world saw her for what she was. But me? I wasn't done. No, this was only the beginning. Because exposing her wasn't revenge. Revenge had to cut deeper. Revenge had to burn. And as I walked out of that hotel with her cries chasing me down the hallway, I already knew exactly how I'd deliver it. After the hotel, something in me shifted. The raw sting of betrayal cooled into a slow, deliberate fire. Public humiliation had made its mark, but it wasn't enough. People gossip, then forget. If I wanted Clara to feel the weight of her choices, it couldn't just be one night of chaos, it had to be a war of attrition. Revenge, I decided, would be slow. Surgical. Precise. The first step was observation. I studied her patterns like a detective, her office hours, her coffee breaks, her Thursday errands. Predictable things, ordinary things, the kind of habits you can bend until they break. Then came the whispers. I didn't need to fabricate lies, the truth was ugly enough. A blurred photo here, a suspicious caption there, guess who? Curiosity did the rest. Within days, Clara's colleagues were trading looks behind her back. Clients grew cautious. Her reputation, once polished, began to dull. But whispers weren't enough. I needed pressure from the people she trusted most. I started with her best friend, Mara. With carefully chosen words and a few well-timed screenshots, I let Mara stitch together her own suspicions. Soon, brunches stopped. Invitations dried up. The safe circle Clara once hidden began to shrink. At work, things worsened. A subtle nudge to a client about Clara being distracted was all it took for HR to open a file. Tiny cracks, but cracks nonetheless. And at home, I made sure she never felt safe. A lipstick shade she didn't own left on the sink. A faint cologne sprayed in the bathroom. Little things, quiet things, that made her question her own grip on reality. Every gesture whispered, I know. I see. You can't escape this. The effect was almost immediate. Clara's confidence shrank. She checked her phone obsessively, flinched at shadows of questions, and scanned every room like a fugitive. And yet, she never confessed. She never admitted what she'd done. One night, she finally broke. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd once planned anniversaries. Her eyes were swollen, her voice trembling. Collins, she whispered, I'm sorry. I never meant for things to go this far. I listened, silent, unmoved. She wanted forgiveness. She wanted to believe I could be the man I once was. But I had already crossed a line. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was her reckoning. The truth was simple, I didn't just want an apology. I wanted consequences. And so I waited, patient, methodical, sharpening my plans in the dark. I had already tightened the screws. All I had to do now was let time finish the work. Now I would wait for the sound it made when it struck midnight. Midnight came sooner than I expected. It started with a phone call on a Tuesday afternoon. Clara's boss, a man who'd once praised her for being the most dependable on the team, had left a voicemail. His voice was clipped, cold. Clara, we need to discuss your conduct. Too many complaints have reached my desk. Be in my office tomorrow at 9. I listened to the message before she did. She had left her phone on the counter, screen glowing, while she showered. And as I stood there in the kitchen, hearing his disappointment, I realized the trap I had set was finally snapping shut. That night, Clara barely touched her dinner. Her fork clinked against the plate, her mind 1,000 miles away. I didn't need to ask what was wrong. She already knew the walls were closing in. But this was only the first domino. The second fell 2 days later, when Mara showed up at our door. Only this time, she wasn't here to ask questions. She was here to say goodbye. "Clara," Mara said, her voice flat, "I can't keep defending you. I've covered for you more times than I can count, but after what I've seen, after what I've heard, I'm done." Clara's lips parted in shock, but no words came. Her best friend, the one who used to laugh with her over wine, the one who carried her secrets, walked away without a hug, without a backward glance. I watched Clara crumble a little more that night. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone, scrolling through old pictures as if nostalgia could stitch the pieces back together. But nostalgia doesn't erase betrayal. It only sharpens it. The third domino came from me, and this time, I wanted to look her in the eye while I pushed it over. "Clara," I said, my voice steady, "do you remember the night at the hotel?" Her face drained of color. "Collins, please." "No," I pressed. "Do you remember the screams? The police? The rapper I held up in front of everyone?" Tears welled in her eyes. I said I was sorry. "Sorry doesn't erase what you did." I leaned closer. "And it doesn't erase what I did either." She blinked, confused. What do you mean?" I let the silence hang before I delivered it. "I swapped it, Clara. That night. What you thought was protection, wasn't." Her eyes widened in horror. She clapped a hand to her mouth, stumbling back as the weight of my words sank in. She finally realized the chaos of that night hadn't been an accident, it had been me, pulling the strings. The truth hit her harder than the pepper spray ever could. She collapsed into the chair, shaking her head. You planned this? You wanted me humiliated? You wanted me destroyed?" I stood over her, calm, collected. "I wanted you to feel what I felt. I wanted you to understand betrayal." Her sobs filled the room, raw and broken. But I didn't move to comfort her. Not this time. Comfort was for husbands. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was her reckoning. And as I turned away, leaving her to drown in the storm she'd created, I knew midnight had struck. The revenge was no longer waiting. It was here, unfolding before us both, and it was only the beginning. Midnight came sooner than I expected. It started with a phone call on a Tuesday afternoon. Clara's boss, a man who had once praised her for being the most dependable on the team, had left a voicemail. His voice was clipped, cold. "Clara, we need to discuss your conduct. Too many complaints have reached my desk. Be in my office tomorrow at 9. I heard it before she did. She had left her phone on the counter, screen glowing, while she showered. And as I stood there in the kitchen, listening to the words slice through the speaker, I realized the trap I had set was finally snapping shut. That night, she barely touched her dinner. Her fork clinked against her plate, her eyes downcast, her mind far away. I didn't ask what was wrong. I wanted her silence to suffocate her. But that was only the first domino. 2 days later, Mara came by. Only this time, she wasn't here to ask questions or to probe for truths. She was here to sever the rope. "Clara," Mara said, standing rigid at the door, "I can't keep defending you. I've tried to believe you. I've tried to excuse it. But after what I've seen, and after what people are saying," she shook her head, eyes glassy but firm. "I can't do it anymore." Clara's breath caught in her throat. "Mara, please. Don't do this to me. You've always been." "No," Mara cut in, her tone sharp. "You did this to yourself." And then she left. No hug. No backward glance. Just the echo of the door slamming shut and Clara's sobs filling the hallway. I watched her crumble a little more that night. She sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling endlessly through her phone, searching for comfort in old photos, desperate texts left unread. The silence of her friends was louder than any confrontation. But nostalgia doesn't erase betrayal. It only sharpens it. The third domino came from me. "Clara," I said one evening, my voice measured, calm. "Do you remember the hotel? The wrapper I held in front of everyone?" She froze, lips trembling. "Collins, please don't." I leaned closer. "That wasn't an accident. I swapped it. That night." Her eyes widened. She staggered back, hand pressed against her mouth, horror rippling across her face. You did that? You planned it?" "I planned everything," I said. "I wanted you humiliated. I wanted you stripped of the lies you used to hide behind." She broke down, tears streaking her face, shoulders shaking violently. "You've ruined me." "No," I corrected softly. "You ruined yourself. I just made sure you couldn't hide it." But the storm didn't stop at home. The next morning, Clara went to work, dressed in her best, trying to compose herself. She returned hours later, pale as a ghost. She had been suspended. Clients had lost confidence. Her boss had handed her a folder of complaints, all those whispers, all those small nudges, gathered into one heavy weight that crushed her. Her career, the career she built for over a decade, was unraveling. And the final blow came a week later. A video surfaced online, grainy, taken by a guest at the hotel that night. It showed Clara screaming, clawing at her face, and me holding up the silver wrapper like evidence. The caption was simple. "This is what betrayal looks like." It spread. Quietly at first, then rapidly. The comments tore her apart. People who didn't even know her judged her, condemned her, laughed at her humiliation. She couldn't step outside without feeling eyes on her. At the grocery store, neighbors avoided her. At the cafe, whispers followed her like shadows. And I watched. Not with joy. Not with triumph. But with the cold satisfaction of a man who had taken back control. Clara wasn't just caught. She was exposed. Every part of the double life she had tried to balance was collapsing in front of her, one brick at a time. That night, she sat at the kitchen table, head buried in her hands, sobbing like a child. Her phone buzzed with messages, not of support, but of severed ties. Her boss. Her friends. Even distant family, cutting her off one by one. She finally looked up at me, eyes bloodshot, voice trembling. "Collins, please. Stop. You've won. You've destroyed me. What more do you want?" I studied her for a long moment, my silence heavier than words. What did I want? Justice? Revenge? Or simply the truth she had always refused to speak? Midnight had struck. And now, all that was left, was to decide how long I wanted the clock to keep ticking. It happened on a Thursday night. I came home to find the house dark, except for the faint glow spilling from under the bathroom door. At first, I thought she'd fallen asleep in the tub again, but the silence was too heavy. No splashing. No humming. Just silence. My chest tightened. I pushed the door open, and froze. Clara was sitting on the cold tiles, her hair disheveled, her face streaked with tears. In her trembling hands was a bottle of pills, half empty. The other half scattered across the floor like broken promises. "Clara." I rushed forward, my anger momentarily replaced by fear. I slapped the bottle from her hands, the plastic clattering against the wall. She didn't fight me. She didn't even flinch. She just looked up at me with hollow eyes, eyes that had no more fight left in them. "I can't carry it anymore, Collins," she whispered. "It's too heavy." I thought if I ended it, at least the lies would die with me. My jaw clenched. "You think dying will fix what you did?" She let out a broken laugh, choked with sobs. "No. But maybe it will finally make you stop hating me." I pulled her up, shaking her shoulders. "Then tell me the truth, Clara. All of it. Every damn thing. Don't you dare leave this world with half the story buried in your chest." Her lips trembled. For a moment, I thought she'd stay silent. But then the dam cracked. "I didn't just cheat once," she confessed, her voice barely audible. "It wasn't just one mistake. It wasn't just one man. It was more." The words hit like knives, but I held her tighter, forcing her to keep going. I told myself it was harmless. That you'd never know. That I deserved to feel alive again. But every time, I killed something inside me. And now there's nothing left. Her sobs shook the walls. She clutched at my shirt like a drowning woman clinging to driftwood. "I destroyed everything, Collins. My job. My friends. You. Us. And the worst part is, I knew I was destroying it while I was doing it, and I still didn't stop." Her body went limp in my arms, her strength spent. The confession had ripped the last of her defenses away, leaving her exposed, raw, unrecognizable. I should have felt victorious. This was what I wanted, full truth, laid bare without excuses. But as she sagged against me, weak and broken, all I felt was a hollow ache. The revenge was complete. The lies were gone. But so was the woman I used to love. The morning after her confession, the house felt different. Heavy. Not because of shouting or slammed doors, but because there was nothing left to say. Clara moved through the rooms like a shadow, her eyes swollen from the night before. She didn't speak. She didn't beg. She just existed, as though even breathing was a punishment. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the half-empty cup of coffee in front of me. My reflection rippled in the black liquid, fractured by every small tremor in my hand. For months I had imagined this moment, the truth, the collapse, the victory. I thought it would feel like justice. But instead, it felt like standing in the ruins of a house I'd burned down with my own hands. Clara finally approached, her voice hoarse. "Collins, what happens now?" The question hung in the air like smoke. I looked at her, really looked at her. This wasn't the woman I married. This wasn't the woman who used to laugh until she cried at my stupid jokes, or who held my hand like it was the anchor keeping her steady. That woman was gone, buried under the weight of her choices and the wreckage of my revenge. What stood before me was a stranger, hollow, broken, and desperate. I stood up slowly, pushing the chair back. Now we end this." Her breath hitched. "End us?" I nodded. "There's nothing left to save, Clara. You destroyed it, and I finished the job. We're standing in ashes, and I won't spend the rest of my life breathing smoke." She staggered, gripping the counter for balance. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she didn't fight me. "Not this time." "I don't blame you," she whispered. "You're right. I broke it all. And I broke you." I grabbed my keys from the table. The weight of them felt like a final judgment. At the door, I paused. For a moment, I almost turned back. Almost. But then I remembered the bathroom floor, the scattered pills, the endless half-truths that dragged us here. And I knew I couldn't do it anymore. Without another word, I stepped outside. The air hit my face, cool and sharp, like a knife cutting away the last thread binding me to her. For the first time in months, I could breathe. Behind me, in that quiet house, Clara's sobs rose again, muffled through the walls. But I didn't go back. Revenge had taken everything, my anger, my love, my marriage. But it had also given me one thing back. My freedom. And as I walked away into the night, I knew that this was not just the end of her lies, not just the end of my revenge. It was the end of us. Forever. If you love this story, please subscribe to this channel and drop a comment where you are watching from.